of overseeing all of the programming here that takes place in Washington, D.C. Right now, we're in the Jazz Club at the Kennedy Center, where we have all kinds of programs, but almost every single weekend we have great jazz programming in this space. This afternoon, we announced all of our POPs programming, and also that we have a new member of our artistic family. Ben Folds has just joined us as artistic advisor to the National Symphony Orchestra. I'm also joined by Stephen Reineke, who has been our principal POPs conductor for 7 years now. 7 years.
Yes.
He's a regular member of the family.
I love it.
So make sure you're friendly.
Oh.
Uncle Steve.
Yeah.
So we're here to have a conversation following up on the announcements of the day. The season next year looks really great, Stephen. And Ben is joining us with a new flavor to some of the programming that we'll have. You'll be working closely with Stephen and then also advising our new music director, John Andrea Nozeda, on some ideas and doing some curating and performing yourself, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
You know, you could be doing this anywhere, Ben. How come you accepted our invitation?
Wow. Well, I mean, this is the nation's capital's artistic playground. I mean, this is the place to do it. This is a total honor for me to do it here, and also, you know, Kennedy Center and NSO have been so open to ideas and to being playful with music, and that is very interesting to me. It's the way I started as a pop musician, was in going into places that you didn't know what they were, and if you're willing to do that, you can make great stuff.
It's about risk-taking, isn't it?
I think a lot of it is about risk-taking.
Right.
It's about your imagination, and not just what came before is so important and has to be honored, but it can't hamper your imagination.
You were trained as a classical pianist.
I was trained as a classical percussionist, which might sound funny, but you know, so years of Triangle. I went to the Triangle Institute of Technology. You don't want to spell that out, but when I was a kid, my first experience as a musician was in a youth orchestra. When I was about 8 years old, every day after school, I was playing the youth orchestra. So this feels like home.
So that's great. So you have the sort of traditional education, and you've taken the risk to go into new areas.
Yeah.
Which is sort of what you've been doing with us since you took over. I am just so pleased. When I first came to the Kennedy Center, I was curious to see what kind of programming you have. And it has gotten more diverse and more interesting the longer you've been here, Stephen. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And you're so articulate about it as well.
Oh, well, I try to be sometimes. Thanks.
So how do you put a season together? How do you go about thinking about it, and what does it look like at the beginning, and then how does it evolve over time?
Well, it has, first of all, I work with a great team here, and in particular, Justin Ellis, who helps a lot with the fine-tuning of the details and contacting guest artists and getting people to agree to perform here. But I think about the audience first and foremost, and to try to get a very diverse selection of offerings. You know, we do, like Ben was saying, we hearken back to the past, to the grand old traditions of popular programming. You know, people always love when we do Broadway music. Film music has become very popular, but we have expanded that. I mean, for everything from R&B to hip-hop. One of the few places in the country that has branched out to experience hip-hop with a live orchestra as well. And we've had some great success doing that. So it's basically putting together a nice offering that provides the full gamut of what this incredible National Symphony is able to do.
Right. So you probably are the world's foremost expert on orchestras working with hip-hop artists.
I just might be.
Because I was just thinking about where else this has happened. And I know there are other cities and other orchestras who've done it, but maybe not to the degree and to the level of talent that
Correct.
you have worked.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody who's done quite what we've done here at the Kennedy Center. I'm very, very proud of that as well. We've done a concert with Nas, where we did his entire Illmatic album. We worked with Kendrick Lamar and presented To Pimp a Butterfly, the multi-Grammy-winning album. Recently, we did a show with Common, which was just absolutely brilliant. And it's been a lot of fun to do these programs and to find a way to bridge the gap between two what people would think are very, very different art forms.
Right.
Without bastardizing either art form.
Right.
The whole idea was to be a true collaboration and elevate both art forms to something that is not this, but something completely different.
Right.
And we've been very successful at that, in my view, and it's worked.
Being authentic to both.
Yes.
And bringing them together to create something new. It's really fabulous. It seems that that's what the two of you are likely to be able to do together. And to really sort of change the word. I don't even know that pops is the right word because
I don't think
it
so.
harkens back to a different kind of format and all. I just think this is something new.
Well, you're trying to, I mean, to me, like, in the time I've spent playing with the orchestras, and I started, maybe about 15 years ago doing a lot of my shows with orchestras, it had more of a pops feel. And what I started to really be inspired by were all the historic, there's so many examples of symphonic music absorbing folk music, for instance. I mean, that's what you have to do is because it's all about storytelling.
Right.
And if telling the story of 180 years ago is very compelling, but it's also very compelling to tell the story of now,
today.
of today. And I think the challenge is, and like what you guys have been doing so well, is doing it without dumbing down one side or without compromising the other, because when you're telling a story, you use everything you got, and it's just about telling a story to me. So.
It's also about the quality of how it's going to be presented.
Absolutely.
And I think that's that both of you have been really interested in doing, because you're right, dumbing down, it's an insult, actually, to
it's demoralizing
everybody
to the orchestra.
who's involved.
To the orchestra and to the audience.
Yeah.
So do you think it's difficult to bring pop artists to come in, or more popular culture, or more current day performers? I don't know what the right word. We're going to have to come up with a new way to describe these artists, to come and work with an orchestra and really create the right chart, what they call the charts, what the orchestra plays.
Well, just in that first step, when we started talking about working together, we started putting together the June 30th show, Declassified. And so I called all my rowdy friends up who I think are some of the most talented current pop artists. And it's interesting because initially a lot of pop artists are intimidated by the idea of it. And what I realize more and more is that it's not even musical, we're talking about cultural.
Yeah.
And to that extent, that's where I'm a huge fan of what the arts can do that nothing else can do, which is just to bring together. There's not even just two sides of our culture. There's 100 of them.
Right.
So when people come to my shows and orchestra shows, they don't know what to wear. They're like they're tweeting like, "What do I wear?" and stuff like that.
What you're wearing.
Don't wear this.
Which one do we do?
And the thing is, it doesn't
Both
matter.
are.
I mean, look at us. We did not consult today, but this is his people's dress. This is my people's dress. But
Mine just has
Both
more
are okay,
food.
right?
yeah, but there shouldn't be, there shouldn't be this divide. We're all in this together. And music is, we always say this, phrase. Of course, it's a universal language. But and the idea to bridge the gap of musical styles with the different sounds that can be created with a classical full 80-piece symphony orchestra with popular music is a unique and different thing for both audiences. For the typical classical symphony audience, suddenly they're hearing it in a different way.
Yeah.
For, say, Ben Folds' audience or Kendrick Lamar's audience, they come in and hear it with an 80-piece orchestra behind it, hear Kendrick's music, and they're hearing it in a different way. And it sounds, Kendrick, that turned out to sound to me like the most epic film soundtrack. Right. It was amazing, emotional, impactful, so powerful, with the weight of this symphony orchestra behind it, and Kendrick's brilliant words.
Yeah, and the dimension to it.
Yeah.
So sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to go to a pops concert and I'm going to go and have fun, or I have to go to a classical music concert and I'm not going to have as much fun. But I kind of think that you have fun in either circumstance, and also it can be really serious in either circumstance.
That's right. Yeah.
That it isn't just one is more lighthearted and that the other is more serious, because a lot of what we were listening to with Kendrick Lamar, for instance, was pretty heavy stuff.
Deep, heavy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of classical music that happens on the stage that is pretty lighthearted as well. I mean, I think these are stereotypes that it would be so great to just eliminate altogether.
Agreed.
Yeah, and to the extent that they're eliminated, and this has happened over and over again, that's when you get new styles.
Right.
And all you can do is continue to try to communicate and to try to form musical sentences as language develops. As musical language develops, as people make up their minds about what something is, then you hit them with what they didn't really think that it was, and it puts everyone in a new place. It's hard to do. Sometimes something new happens, which is probably as much as bringing a newer and younger audience into the orchestra. Every bit as much, I'm as excited about the possibility that sometimes something completely new happens under your watch.
Right.
You put these things together, see what happens. Like, if a pop artist unpacks a new piece of technology in the form of some kind of software or drum machine, the first thing you do is like, wow, what can I do with this?
Right.
And you start playing with it. When it comes to the orchestra, I feel like my job is to bring in pop artists and convince them that this is a toy. This is not this isn't something where you have to sound exactly like something that happened before.
Right.
They'll tell you when they don't want to do something.
Yeah, or even a better word maybe than a laboratory.
Yeah, laboratory.
Where you can experiment. You can,
Well, that's what art is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just recreating the same old thing. Otherwise, there has to be experimentation, adaptation, collaboration.
The collaboration.
And then bringing in new artists to help with that collaboration opens a new eye. If you think about it, some of the most important works that we listen to as classics now, you think of The Rite of Spring, and the dynamic meter, and the different kinds of sounds, and the use of the instruments, and the sounds of folk music that comes in, suddenly was revolutionary. And what was the first reaction?
Upset.
Very much so. But look at what happened as a result over time. So I think we have to have the courage to do it. I mean, I think that's what's so great about the two of you working together and your two perspectives coming into the new season. So tell us about June 30. June 30 is sort of one of the next times that you're sort of in charge of that whole evening. It's called Declassified here at the concert hall.
Yep.
Can you tell us anything about that program?
Right. Yeah. Well, what I reflected on the things that I wanted to sort of see happen, accomplish a dream concert, sort of, and started with Blake Mills, who is a guitarist, and he's also. It's not even a stretch of a prediction anymore. He's going to be one of the biggest producers of our time. He's producing records now, and everyone wants this guy.
Take note of that.
Yeah, take note of that. Maybe he'll still produce your record at this moment, but next week is too late because he's extremely talented, and mixing an album or production of an album has so much to do with where orchestration came from. You want to turn up the treble a little bit, we'll add a piccolo just over the oboe possibly. Like these considerations of sound and balance and production and the way that people hear music was done through the ears of the time as it developed, and now it's going through people like Blake. And I thought it would be very interesting to have such a consummate producer and musician. He's one of the best guitarists I've heard in years, be on the show. He's also becoming pretty popular too, so that he'll have a lot of his fans out. And then my recent interest in Cuba, because I get to go. I get to go to Cuba and spend a week there and play with their musicians and stuff. Then I can bring up Denai Suarez, and
that's going to be great.
She's for anyone who doesn't know her music, she's Spanish-speaking, bullet-spitting, rapping, beautiful singer, great, just so much personality coming out of her. I think we can learn a lot from seeing her open and free expression in music. It's got to be, contagious. And so I wanted her on the first one. So we're going to tie in quote classical music that the three of us love into the performance.
Great.
I've spent my last 3 weeks with my head in my own orchestration, which I normally don't get as into, and I've orchestrated everything that I'm going to play.
That'll be exciting.
And we also brought in my friend Rob Moose to orchestrate, and he's with Y Music, and he's very original musician. And then from New Deco in Miami, we have Giacomo Barros. He's conducting, and his partner in crime is a great, really unusual orchestrator too. So we're bringing some of my favorite minds into the thing, and we want to draw a thread so that when someone hears something classic or we hear some Bernstein, that it is like, Blake will probably play something from Candide himself on the guitar. So we'll hear the thread through it, because I think people need context. And that's what's happening on 30th.
So you've been here in this building doing so many different things with
Yeah.
us, and I can't thank you enough. I'm so thrilled with that. But this is really the first time where this program is your baby.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
take note of that.
Yeah, no, it is, and I've taken it I'm bringing in all kinds of beginner enthusiasm.
Yeah.
The first one I'm totally have overbuilt, and I think people
Well,
should.
don't oversell it, because you have more next year.
No. I'm going to keep it up. I've got
Good.
stamina, but I've definitely, I'm in it 100%. I'm just
Good.
really excited about this. This is what I've been wanting to see happen for a long time. I'm really
Yeah.
grateful to be able to have
So
this
that's June 30
laboratory.
here at the concert hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
In an experimental first time together.
Yeah.
That's
No
fantastic.
toys, only
That's
labs.
great. So we have people watching us on Facebook, and we've had a question. It's an interesting one. Molly is asking, who is your favorite 19th century composer? Ding, 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 ding,
I'm
ding.
what am I? There's so many. I mean, I'm a huge Tchaikovsky fan.
Okay.
Great melodies. Speaking of melodies, Puccini. I'm all about melodies, hanging on to that.
Yes,
I also
you
come
are
being
about melodies. We know about you as being a singer.
Oh yeah. If you can hum it, sing it, that's good. That's always good. I also come being a trumpet player, was what my original degree was in. So I don't know. That's tough. There's so many great.
Well, it's hard. Yeah, it's the desert island question.
Where does
Yeah.
Debussy land? Right before, right at the end of the 19th, but we
Yeah,
call him
it's
20th
20th
more.
century, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
okay. What is your it doesn't have to be 19th century. I'm making out for Molly. Sorry, Molly. Tell us what are your other composers that you would
Well,
respect, admire?
I like Tchaikovsky too, and when I was a kid, I always liked playing percussion. If it was Dvorak, that was always fun.
Yeah.
Composers in general, I like, I kind of like the, I brought up Debussy because I like the French guys. I like Ravel and Debussy a lot. I like Chopin.
That's because you also like colors.
Color,
So
yeah.
Ravel and Debussy.
I love the
Chopin.
colors,
Yeah.
and I love the. It's just it puts you. For me, it puts me somewhere. It took me longer as a grown-up to get into, say, Beethoven, but I did so through late quartets. For some reason, that's something I could relate to first before I could relate to ba-ba-ba-bum, which was a disco
Right.
hit.
Right.
That is
Right.
of an era.
Yeah.
Okay, guess what? We have another question. This one's, I'm going to read it specifically so I don't screw it up. How do you propose that these new styles, the ones we've been talking about, become more accessible and common in communities that typically don't or can't see the NSO at the Kennedy Center?
How do you make it
How
more?
do you make them more accessible and more common, and for those communities that don't get to hear? How do we use this as a way to bring people
But I think that describes the majority of people. I mean, because a symphony orchestra, it has always been a very expensive thing to create and maintain. But in my experience, almost every symphony orchestra I play with makes sure that they do a whole lot to get out in the community and bring people in to listen to it. Musically, I don't think you need to. We go back to I don't think it needs to pander, dumb down anything in order to make anyone who doesn't normally hear it. I think you need to create context. I think anyone can understand great music of any kind if they're given the time and the context to do it.
Yeah.
So if the question is how do you change it, I say you don't change a note. Possibly you take it on, like if you're talking about like what you've done with R&B music, hip hop, and rap, then that's one way of doing it.
Well, for me, to answer that question is, I always wish that that more people could see what we're doing here at the Kennedy Center. Because we do have some great resources here at the Kennedy Center to be able to draw in certain types of artists that aren't necessarily going to be drawn to go play in a different city with a different orchestra at a different venue. So we have that luxury here to be able to offer that for wonderful artists. Now, my thing is, they happen here in the center, and if you have a ticket, you're here, you get to see it. Sometimes they're one-night-only concerts, and they're very, very special. But what I'd love to see is for us to be able to do more live streaming of our concerts, to be able to make it a video and make it commercially available for people to be able to see. This is one thing I think the classical world could learn more from the pop world, is we need to relax a little bit more. We all know that there are a lot of rules based on musicians' unions and this and that, and things are very expensive for us because orchestras are not a cheap endeavor. You have people who have worked their whole life to get to the top tier in their talent, and they get compensated very well, and they have a wonderful union. But some, in my personal view, some of the regulations are not quite up to date with how people consume media these days.
Right.
So I would very much love I get it all the time. People say, oh, that's an amazing show that you're doing out there. I wish I could see it. I wish they could too.
Right.
I wish people around the country and the world could see some of these massive performances we're putting on.
But one thing I know is that there is nothing like the live experience.
No,
and
of course
so
not.
It's our goal really to make these tickets as accessible, affordable, and to encourage people to experiment. It's like taking a risk. You don't want to eat the same dinner every single night, so why do you want to go hear the same performers all the time? Take a risk and come and join us. And you both have created such a lot of really interesting programs, and we're working hard to make sure tickets are affordable as well. I think this part that we're doing, this streaming stuff, is really good to break down barriers so that you can hear what's going on. And the Common concert was streamed. So
that one was, yeah.
There are some ways
some
for
of the Kendrick
people
one was on.
Some of the Kendrick, yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good start, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I have to say here has been much better than most places in that regard. But you're exactly right. If you're going to bring the orchestra quote into the 21st century, don't do it by making the music dumber. Actually allow people to hear it, which is what we do. Is like when I play a tour, I've had times like I had a moment with iTunes, and we were putting out my songs the day after I played it. But all the orchestra shows, they didn't show up. And I was like, what a shame. That's my best one.
I know.
And no one gets to hear it to come back.
I know.
So I agree with that.
People need to know about it. They need to be able to hear it and see it.
Well, I think it takes having great advocates like you both who are really interested in collaborating with other artists, finding new ways of bringing people together, making sure that we're having a great time, a great experience no matter what, and understanding that the live experience coming together, there's really nothing like it.
I think so. And I always tell, I mean, when I play concerts with orchestras, I take a moment to all but beg them to come back. And I think one of my more compelling selling points probably is the truth of the matter, which is if you're, especially in your 20s, you take a date to the orchestra, you will get laid. And that's
he says it every show, pretty much every show.
You know what?
Brilliant.
My brother did take his wife on a first date, but to the ballet. I guess it works.
The ballet, it's the same thing because you know, and I'm talking to you, America. If you take a date to the orchestra, you're going to look like sensitive, like you know what's happening, and it's a quiet. It's actually something that you can actually breathe for a moment and sit through an experience with someone that's not, you know, it makes sense. And if you're You know, my new line to that is if you're a serial philanderer, then you can get season tickets, you can get subscription tickets.
Okay, that's going to be on the website. If you're a serial philanderer, this is the series for you. No, I don't think
bring
so.
a different chick to the same.
I have a buddy that does that.
Okay, we are going to have to log off in just a moment, but I wanted to ask you two different questions, if I can beg for a little bit more time. You said you were immersing yourself in composing and orchestrating at the moment. So what does it take to be able to do that? Where do you go in your mind and in your home, or where do you do that work, and what's happening in that moment?
Well, it has to be a little bit more imaginative and theoretical, because even though in these days you can hear an audition of a Casio canned thing playing the things that you've imagined, it's still, like you say, it's a live experience. And the more that you're in front of an orchestra, every moment that you're in front of it, that you're taking it in, you're probably learning something towards creativity in that regard. It's the same thing as my experience playing in garage bands when we first started. It's kind of like, well, if you play that up here, no, dude, play it up here. You know, orchestration is like a very refined, lifelong. I mean, you know, all it is just register and timbre, who should be a big problem. I think it's the most. It's incredible. I'm having. It's very humbling the time I've spent in it. I made a piano concerto, and right now I'm working on some other stuff. And it's a wormhole, but I think it's the most beautiful art form, and that's why I like Ravel, because I just love the colors.
Yeah, I think orchestration is like architecture. I've used this so many times, because being a writer myself, I have a degree in music composition. It's like an architect when you're creating a score, you're creating a blueprint.
Yeah.
And the more buildings you get built, more pieces you hear, you get played, you know what works, what doesn't.
Yeah.
So you start to understand more and how you can push the boundaries and the envelopes. But it's a lot like architecture.
Yeah.
You know, but you need to have the experience and the opportunity to get that building built, get that piece
to
played.
be built. Yeah, no, it's
so
amazing.
you know if it's going to work or not.
Can you imagine back in the day, but just before, not even that long ago, before there was recording, and you would compose a piece. Well, you hear it in rehearsal, then you might hear it at its opening.
Yeah. That would be the first time.
There's no other way to
then frame it.
Study it.
Because you get that's it.
Yeah.
That's incredible to me. Really.
So, Stephen, over 7 years, you have built a whole community 7 times because of the season as a whole. So here's where all of the different components of the season fit, and now you've done it again for next year. 2 or 3 highlights, things that you're particularly excited or something new.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think the season's about 13 concerts, and of course I love everything. And I love that you hit on that. Diversity is huge for us, and we have done a great job bringing in a lot of different audiences throughout the DC metro area. A couple that I'm very, very much looking forward to is a Brazilian artist named So Jorge is going to be joining us. He was in the 2004 Wes Anderson film The Life Aquatic, and he provided the soundtrack. So it's the David Bowie catalog, but done basically Brazilian samba style and in Portuguese. Imagine putting all that together. Yeah. And Bowie actually loved this. So we're very happy to be welcoming him here. That's going to be exciting. I know that, Leonard Bernstein, who's one of my great idols, his centennial's coming up in 2018, and we're going to do the entire West Side Story in concert with an all-star cast. Very much looking forward to that. Of course, there's some great film projects. Harry Potter, the Chamber of Secrets will be presenting. Selma, the film.
Selma, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
I think we're doing the debut of that, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah.
World premiere of it. I hope it's the world premiere, but I think we are.
So it's the film and the
yes.
orchestra and Jason Moran.
With Jason Moran, who's our
so it's really great.
director of jazz, who wrote the score for it. Worked
That's
on the
really
score
great.
with Common and John Legend, of course. So
it's a great
there's a lot on the season. It's just.
So all the concerts for the season are on our website, kennedy-center.org, and you can see both of these guys and all of their plans for next season. Thank you both. This was fun. We could go on
Deborah.
for a few more hours.
We certainly could.
I've been told we have to sign off. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and please be sure to check out our Facebook page as well as the website with all the details for next season. Thank you.